The idea of modeling was something that I was unfamiliar with upon coming here. And coming to this session, I really realized that modeling is about coming up with an understanding in your mind that you can communicate with others.
Well, modeling as a strategy, as a technique, helps the students to develop the ideas on their own. So instead of just being told the concepts, they have to evaluate the evidence for those concepts on their own. And I think it leads to a deeper and more long-lasting understanding of those concepts.
Is that it simplifies complex biochemical topics and makes it much more easy for the student and for the teacher to zero in on what is the most important aspect of this topic, and also allows, I believe, the student to have a take-home message that even if they don't continue in this field of science, they will have a broad understanding of their world and of nature, and hopefully a better understanding of themselves as it pertains to their placement on this planet.
So these 2 weeks were structured with kind of two main ideas in mind. First, we wanted to have student mode and teacher mode to give the teachers the opportunity to feel the frustration and all the feelings that their students are going to have with this type of pedagogy. Teacher mode to give them that place to reflect and apply it to their own classrooms. And at the same time, we wanted to provide a little bit of space for them to practice, try out a lab, tweak it with this new pedagogy in a system of, in a community of teachers, so that if you're going to learn from a failure or have some difficulty, let's learn in a safe environment, and then you can also pivot that straight into your classroom right away. You have something that you've tried, so it's a nice little baby step to get you started. So to me, the NGSS isn't about teaching the content isolated from teaching the science skills, isolated from teaching the engineering skills. To me, NGSS is about infusing all of those things into every single one of your lessons. So I think what we've tried to do is show that you can use the biology content as a vehicle to learn the science and engineering practices and see the cross-cutting concepts.
The program here is very applicable to what I do in the classroom. I think it takes where I'm at as a biology teacher and takes me to that next step. I think these practices that we're learning really elevate biology curriculum in an accessible way.
In order to engage the students in active thinking, you need evidence-based material for the students to learn. And fortunately, in this workshop, we were given a lot of reading materials which has the first-hand data from researchers, and I think these materials are very important.
A CER technique of having students communicate their ideas and their thought process. And I think that that is so helpful on so many different levels. In particular, yes, in classroom discussions, in laboratory experiments, but also, which is my personal love and pet encouragement of these students, is to become scientifically literate and build science literacy. So in summarizing articles, which they do for me every single week from the current science of that week, I'm thinking of converting it all into a CER format as they read the article. This is what I need from them: the claim, the evidence, and the reasoning behind each article that they read, and they will come out more clearly understanding the information that was presented, and most importantly, being able to have critical skills in analysis.
So we got a chance to actually deliver a lesson that was completely modeling using all these tips and techniques, and then receive constructive feedback from our groups. So that definitely facilitates and builds your confidence being able to do it in your classroom.
We received some new data. It was basically after talking about Mendel. We were given data that ultimately showed a sex-linked trait, white eyes and fruit flies. And the interesting thing about it is every biology teacher in that classroom knew about sex linkage, but the power of that kind of lab is that we also had to explain why other ideas were wrong. How do we know that this trait wasn't carried on the Y chromosome? How do we know it was carried only on the X chromosome and not the X and the Y? And so even I, who have done this lab or have looked at this data for years and years and years, was learning something new, and that was to kind of explain how I know what I know and how I know that something else is incorrect.
I'm grappling, but having the confidence to say I could move over and let my students be proactively the indicators of the knowledge that they still need help with and to understand, rather than my giving them a TV dinner of information. I think that aspect for my teaching will be such a dramatic shift away from how I normally would have conducted a class in biology.
Oh, it completely changes the way I think about teaching biology. It's very, very student-centered, and the students are really building upon their own ideas instead of just being told what to think and accept things for face value, and they're questioning a lot more.
I can really see myself integrating a lot of the ideas that I have learned in the past few days in my own classroom, and I think that they're really going to benefit the culture within my classroom, because students are going to be empowered to be in charge of their own learning. And I think this modeling professional development has really shown me a way to communicate that with my students and roll it out in a very smooth way.
In not telling us what to do, it also gave us more ownership of what we were doing.
The students take more ownership for what they know and how they know what they know.
So the most challenging thing, I think, is really getting into your brain and thinking about why you know the things that you know. Did you memorize them? Did you question them? Really making you think about, how do you know that? Why do you know that? And I think as educators, it makes us uncomfortable to really dig in and think about, well, how do I know that? And really being able to then explain or get your students to think about that as well.
What's most challenging is just how to do it. It's just how to effectively get the students to develop the models on their own without just coming to the rescue too quickly. And the two leaders we have are experts.
They have been very supportive with their time, with their sincerity, with their honesty, and most critically with their acknowledgement of the reality that this process is slow, it's tedious, it's frustrating, but in the end the gains will far outweigh the challenges of having gone through it.
The community of this workshop has been extraordinary. There's so many supportive voices in the room and so many like-minded individuals. And what I mean by like-minded is teachers that are open to changing how they're approaching teaching.
We've been building community over the last 2 weeks. It feels funny that I feel like I've known them for so long, because you're really getting into the nitty-gritty weaknesses of everybody's thought process, and you need a very strong shoulders and tough backbone to recognize that we're all vulnerable. And making ourselves vulnerable automatically opens us up to being able to build bonds and friendships, hopefully be collaborative.
I think it's great to see other teachers from other schools, from very different backgrounds, and just coming together and sharing their viewpoints and really thinking about, okay, what does this modeling biology look like for each of us? Because this is what it looks like for Glenn and Chris, but it's not a cookie cutter. You just take that, whatever they're doing, and do it in your class.
The teachers here are so supportive of this process. They really work with you to help you understand what they do and what's successful, and inspire the teachers they're working with to implement this as well in a similar way, not in the exact same way or with the same curriculum, but just with the guise of, you can do this in a way that helps students come to their own understanding, and it really benefits the students' thinking and building skills. And I think building skills is the direction that I want to go in as an educator.
In 10 years, I would love to hear from teachers from this year and say, hey, I'm using it and I've tried this and it works great, and I haven't tried this yet, but I'd like to. Just to see them really kind of take it and run with it, I would love to see that in 10 years.